With old school RuneScape being released to Steam, I decided I wanted to go over some things that a lot of us might take for granted, but would be vital information to new players. So, if you're someone who already plays, maybe you'll learn something new, and if you're new to this game from Steam, I hope this helps. Don't forget to subscribe if any of these things helped you out, as I will be doing more videos like this in the future. I will try to remember also to leave timestamps in the description so you can skip around to certain sections if you feel like you already know about the current topic. OSRS is a huge game. There's a lot to experience. Tons of quests, skills, monsters, and bosses. The thing is, a lot of them are locked behind membership. I'm going to cover this more in a future video, but it's important to know that moving forward, the vast majority of this game is locked behind that membership paywall. I'd recommend deciding to get it once you figure out if the game is right for you. First things first. Unless things change, the client you're loading the game off of, if you're new to this game, is off of the Steam client, and it's basically just a vanilla RuneScape client. Just like other MMOs like World of Warcraft, RuneScape does technically have add-ons that can make the gameplay way more enjoyable, or even just save you some Google searches. In order to gain access to those plugins, you have to download a client called Runelite. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below to do this, but if you decide to Google it yourself, make sure you're getting the client from runelite.net, as there are some scam websites, and obviously I don't want any of you guys clicking that stuff. Now, there are a million reasons to download Runelite, but just to name a few, it comes with a bunch of plugins that add huge convenience factors. It can give you easier access to experience trackers, the ability to track the loot that you've obtained from specific monsters or bosses, lots of UI customization. It can help you with clue scrolls, which are basically treasure hunts with riddles to solve along the way. You can even set it to flash the screen when your character is idling to make sure you aren't wasting XP, and there's so much more than that. Even a plugin that can help you walk through the quests in the game so you don't need video guides or to reference different websites. In order to cover all the plugins that Runelite offers, this video would be well over an hour long, but I strongly encourage checking them out. This client has also been officially approved by Jagex, as you can see on screen here, and I'll leave a link in the description as well, so there's no risk in getting banned if you're using it. All it really does is add to the experience and maybe make some things you don't like a little bit easier. Now, like I mentioned before, this video isn't just about Runelite, it's about all of the basics. Runelite is just a very helpful tool to let you get past some early game barriers. The first actual in-game thing to cover here is something that's vital for every player to know about, and that is the Grand Exchange. The Grand Exchange is the in-game hub for selling and buying items similar to the auction house in other MMOs. This does function a little bit differently, as you can't see the offers of other players, but you can make buy and sell offers as freely as you want. There are some restrictions, as some items are capped to only be able to buy a certain amount per day, but honestly, that's not a problem that you'll regularly run into until you have tons of gold. So, it's not that much to worry about, but it's very important to be familiar with this location, because you're going to be using it a lot. Something that differentiates RuneScape from other MMOs is the world system. A lot of games nowadays have you pick a server, and that's what you're stuck with. Unless you pay to transfer, you're there forever. In RuneScape, you can freely hop between worlds, which is convenient for finding less crowded training spots, trying to take advantage of item spawns, or even looking for a world that has lower ping so it's easier for you to play. Let's go cover some other things that a lot of us are familiar with, but new players are definitely more prone to fall victim to. Those things are scams and lures. RuneScape is different from a lot of other MMOs because almost all of the best in slot gear in this game is actually purchasable from other players with the in-game currency GP. Because of this, a lot of players will do some shady things to make as much GP as possible, even if that means taking advantage of unsuspecting newcomers. There's also a black market side to RuneScape where some people will trade the in-game currency for real-life money, but that's something that's unfortunately way too common in almost every MMO nowadays. The general rule to follow in most of these cases is that if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. It's not very likely that someone will randomly run up to you and say, hey, I have a way for you to make 50 mil, if they're not trying to take advantage of you. And the unfortunate reality is that a lot of players will take advantage of the ignorance of a newcomer, or the fact they might not be paying full attention to what's going on around them. A common example of this is something that you'll probably see pretty frequently. There are a lot of autotypers and bots in the game that spam things along the lines of spending 1 billion GP, or buying a certain item for far above its market value, when in fact they have substantially less. They take advantage of the platinum token system, which basically is just raw amounts of gold converted into something called the platinum token. If someone isn't paying enough attention, they might give a very valuable item to a scammer without even realizing they got scammed. and they won't know until it's too late. Once the trade window is closed, there's nothing you can do, and Jagex can't give you those items back because of the fact that it might have already passed through the hands of 15 other players. Easy ways to avoid this are to always double check the trade screens before accepting anything, and the best way to avoid this is simply do your trading through the Grand Exchange. In addition to scamming, there's something that's all too common in RuneScape called luring. Luring is when a devious player will lure an unsuspecting player to a PvP zone to kill them for their items, or trick them into dropping their items in a way that they won't be able to pick them back up. The two main ways people get lured are by someone getting convinced to hop onto a PvP world, which is where players can be attacked almost anywhere, and in the wilderness, which is an area where, again, players can get attacked. A general rule of thumb is to just not go to these areas until you're much more familiar with the game. If you do decide to go there for whatever reason, maybe you want to take on some of the unique things that are in the wilderness, or you would like to maybe try and find a less crowded area by going to a PvP world, always be prepared to lose the items you've brought and never ever take anything too expensive. Normally in RuneScape, you keep a few items when you die. However, when you attack another player in one of these PvP zones, you get a PK skull. PK stands for player killer. This skull means you no longer protect any items unless you use the protect from item prayer to do so. The reason I'm bringing this up is because, again, people will try to take advantage of this mechanic to make you lose your most valuable items. The best way to avoid this is to simply go here in your in-game options and change the player attack options to off. This means you can never attack another player and you will never accidentally skull on someone and lose additional items. You can turn this off at any time or turn it back on to be able to attack players if you're doing certain minigames like Last Man Standing that are PvP oriented. Again, the best way to avoid these types of skull tricks, is what they're known as, are by simply not following people if they ask you to go to a dangerous zone or to drop your item. Now, that side of the game is obviously pretty dark, and although you will run into players like that, it shouldn't shape your whole game experience. Let's move on to something that a lot of people might be wondering about, especially as a new player, and that is training your account. The best part about RuneScape is that you don't have to pick one particular class when you start the game, since every player will have access to every skill, provided they have membership. Certain bosses and monsters will be strong to some attack styles, and even some specific weapons, but weak to others. So being well-rounded is generally pretty helpful, but you can play however you want. You don't even have to fight things if you'd rather just kick back and chop some trees or catch some fish. The early levels of this game, though, are pretty boring and mundane, since there isn't much variety in order to train them, so the best way to get through that is by doing quests. Now, quests in RuneScape are a bit different than other MMOs, as they only are completable once, and will generally tell you some kind of story or give you a little bit of lore, rather than asking you to go kill 15 boars over and over again. That being said, some of these quests do offer a plethora of experience that can be done at the very early levels, rocketing you through the beginning stages of your account. Waterfall Quest is a great example, as it's something that a lot of fresh accounts will do. It requires very minimal stats, doesn't cost much, but will raise your attack and strength levels from level 1 all the way to over level 30. I'll be leaving a link in the description that shows the XP rewards from all quests, so make sure you check it out. Using the Quest Helper plugin, downloadable from Runelite's plugin hub, is also insanely helpful for this. I know I've already gone through so much in this video, and I really hope it's not overwhelming to the new players, but this is probably the most important thing of all. The biggest tip I can give to anybody, new player, returning player, long-term player, is make sure you are not comparing yourself to others. Having goals in this game is great, and honestly really important to make sure that you know what you want to do in the game. But it's important to also be realistic about those goals and enjoy the journey to get there. RS is full of content, from the early to the mid to the late game, and there are thousands and thousands of hours worth of gameplay to enjoy, so there's no need to rush through it and muddy your experience. You might have 5 to 10 hours on this game, which is honestly a lot of time, but others, like myself and tons of other people in this game, will probably have 5 to 10,000, so don't feel like you're being left behind. The biggest tool in this game is game knowledge. Using this button right here will tell you all you need to know about anything you find around the world in RuneScape. If you click this button, then click something in the game, it'll open up an official page on the RuneScape wiki. And we have one of the best wiki communities out of any game. So despite this video covering a lot of different stuff, there is so much more I would like to go over. If you guys would like to hear me talk about anything specific, make sure to let me know down in the comments below. Leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And thank you again so much for watching. Peace out and enjoy your journey.
Baby, but you know I never will. No, so I choke you down.